Hello, this is Morel Bernard and welcome to Nirvana, Meditation, Knowledge, Wisdom. Yes, continuing the story of Siddhartha, continuing the story, and please subscribe and please share. So, last words were, I want to learn from myself, want to be my student, want to get to know myself, the secret of Siddhartha. He looked around as if he was seeing the world for the first time. Beautiful was the world. Colourful was the world. Strange and mysterious was the world. Here was blue. Here was yellow. Here was green. The sky and the river flowed. The forest and the mountains were rigid. All of it was beautiful. All of it was mysterious and magical. And in its midst was he, Siddhartha, the awakening one, on the path to himself. All this yellow and blue, river and forest entered Siddhartha for the first time through the eyes, was no longer a spell of Mara, was no longer the veil of Maya, was no longer a pointless and coincidental diversity of mere appearances, despicable to the deeply thinking Brahman who scorns diversity, who seeks unity. Blue was blue, river was river, and if also in the blue and the river in Siddhartha, the singular and divine lived hidden, so it was still that very divinity's way and purpose to be here yellow, here blue, there sky, there forest, and here Siddhartha. The purpose and the essential properties were not somewhere behind the things. They were in them, in everything. How deaf and stupid have I been, he thought, walking swiftly along. When someone reads a text, wants to discover its meaning, he will not scorn the symbols and letters and call them deceptions, coincidence, and worthless hull, but he will read them. He will study and love them, letter by letter. But I, who wanted to read the book of the world and the book of my own being, I have, for the sake of a meaning I had anticipated before I read, scorned the symbols and letters. I call the visible world a deception, called my eyes and my tongue coincidental and worthless forms without substance. No, this is over. I have awakened. I have indeed awakened and have not been born before this very day. In thinking these thoughts, Siddhartha stopped once again, suddenly, as if there was a snake flying or lying in front of him on the path. Because suddenly he had also become aware of this. He, who was indeed like someone who had just woken up, or like a newborn baby, he had to start his life anew and start again at the very beginning. When he had left in this very morning from the grove Jedantha, the grove of that exalted one, already awakening, already on the path towards himself, he had every intention regarded as natural and took for granted that he, after years as an ascetic, would return to his home and his father. But now, only in this moment, when he stopped as if a snake was lying on his path, he also awoke to this realization. But I am no longer the one I was. I am no ascetic anymore. I am not a priest anymore. I am no Brahman anymore. Whatever should I do at home and at my father's place? Study? Make offerings? Practice meditation? But all this is over. All of this is no longer alongside my path. Motionless, Siddhartha remained standing there. And for the time of one moment and breath, his heart felt cold. He felt a cold in his chest as a small animal, a bird or a rabbit, would, when seen how alone he was. For many years, he had been without home and had felt nothing. Now he felt it. Still, even in the deepest meditation, he had been his father's son. He had been a Brahmin of a high caste, a cleric. Now he was nothing but Siddhartha, the awoken one. Nothing else was left. Deeply, he inhaled, and for a moment he felt cold and shivered. Nobody was thus alone as he was. There was no nobleman who did not belong to the noblemen, no worker that did not belong to the workers, and found refuge with them, shared their life, spoke their language. No Brahmin who would not be regarded as Brahmins and lived with them, no ascetic who would not find his refuge in the caste of the Samanas, and even the most forlorn hermit in the forest was not just one and alone. He was also surrounded by a place he belonged to. He also belonged to a caste in which he was at home. Govinda had become a monk, and 1,000 monks were his brothers, wore the same robe as he, believed in his faith, spoke his language. But he, Siddhartha, where did he belong to? With whom would he share his life? Whose language would he speak? Out of this moment, when the world melted away all around him, when he stood alone like a star in the sky, out of this moment of a cold and despair, Siddhartha emerged, more a self than before, more firmly concentrated. He felt this had been the last tremor of the awakening, the last struggle of this birth. And it was not long until he walked again in long strides, started to proceed swiftly and impatiently, heading no longer for home, no longer to his father, no longer back. Siddhartha learned something new on every step of his path, for the world was transformed, and his heart was enchanted. He saw the sun rising over the mountains with their forest and setting over the distant beach with its palm trees. At night he saw the stars in the sky in their fixed positions and in the crescent of the moon floating like a boat in the blue. He saw trees, stars, animals, clouds, rainbows, rocks, herbs, flowers, stream and river, the glistening dew in the bushes in the morning, distant high mountains which were blue and pale. Birds sang and bees. Wind silverishly blue through the rice field. All of this, 1,000-fold and colourful, had always been there. Always the sun and the moon had shone. Always rivers had roared and bees had buzzed. But in former times, all of this had been nothing more to Siddhartha than a fleeting, deceptive veil before his eyes, looked upon in distrust, destined to be penetrated and destroyed by thought, since it was not the essential existence, since this essence lay beyond on the other side of the visible. But now, his liberated eyes stayed on this side. He saw and became aware of the visible, sought to be at home in this world, did not search for the true essence, did not aim at a world beyond. Beautiful was this world, looking at it thus, without searching, thus simply, thus childlike. Beautiful were the moon and the stars. Beautiful was the stream and the banks, the forest and the rocks, the goat and the gold beetle, the flower and the butterfly. Beautiful and lovely it was, thus to walk through the world, thus childlike, thus awoken, thus open to what is near, thus without distrust. Differently, the sun burnt the head. Differently, the shade of the forest cooled him down. Differently, the stream and the cistern, the pumpkin and the banana tasted. Short were the days, short the nights. Every hour sped swiftly away like a sail on the sea, and under the sail was a ship full of treasures, full of joy. Siddhartha saw a group of apes moving through the high canopy of the forest, high in the branches, and heard their savage, greedy song. Siddhartha saw a male sheep following a female one and mating with her. In a lake of reeds he saw the pike hungrily hunting for its dinner, propelling themselves away from it in fear, wiggling and sparkling. The young fish jumped in droves out of the water. The scent, the strength and passion came forcefully out of the hasty eddies of the water, which the pike stirred up, impetuously hunting. All of this had always existed, and he had not seen it. He had not been with it. Now he was with it. He was part of it. Light and shadow ran through his eyes. Stars and moon ran through his heart. On the way, Siddhartha also remembered everything he had experienced in the garden Nirvana, the teaching he had heard there, the divine Buddha, the farewell from Govinda, the conversation with the Exalted One. Again, he remembered his own words. He had spoken to the Exalted One, every word, and with astonishment he became aware of the fact that there he had said things which he had not really known yet at this time. What he had said to Gautama, the Buddha's treasure and secret, was not the teaching, but the unexpressible and not teachable, which he had experienced in the hour of his enlightenment. It was nothing but this very thing which he had now gone to experience, what he now began to experience. Now he had to experience his self. It is true that he had already known for a long time that his self was Atman, in its essence bearing the same eternal characteristics as Brahman. But never he had really found the self, because he had wanted to capture it in the net of thought, with the body definitely not being the self and not the spectacle of the senses. So it also was not the thought, not the rational mind, not the learned wisdom, not the learned ability to draw conclusions and to develop previous thoughts into new ones. No, this world of thought was also still on this side, and nothing could be achieved by killing the random sense of the senses. If the random self of thoughts and learned knowledge was fattened, on the other hand, both the thoughts as well as the senses were pretty things. The ultimate meaning was hidden behind both of them. Both had to be listened to, both had to be played with, both neither had to be scorned nor overestimated. From both the secret voices of the innermost truth had to be attentively perceived. He wanted to strive for nothing, except for what the voice commanded him to strive for, dwell on nothing, except where the voice would advise him to do so. Why had Gautama at that time, in the hour of all hours, sat down under the bo tree, where the enlightenment hit him? He had heard a voice in his own heart, which had commanded him to seek rest under this tree, and he had neither preferred self-castigation, offerings, ablutions, nor prayer, neither food nor drink, neither sleep nor dream. He had obeyed the voice. To obey like this, not to an external command, only to the voice, to be ready like this was good. This was necessary. Nothing else was necessary. In the night, when he slept in the straw hut of a ferryman by the river, Siddhartha had a dream. Govinda was standing in front of him, dressed in the yellow robe of an ascetic. Sad was how Govinda looked like. Sadly, he asked, "Why have you forsaken me?" At this, he embraced Govinda, wrapped his arms around him, and as he was pulling him close to his chest and kissed him, it was not Govinda anymore, but a woman, and a full breast popped out of the woman's dress, at which Siddhartha lay and drank sweetly and strongly tasted the milk from this breast. It tasted of woman and man, of sun and forest, of animal and flower, of every fruit, of every joyful desire. It intoxicated him and rendered him unconscious. When Siddhartha woke up, the pale river shimmered through the door of the hut, and in the forest, a dark call of an owl resounded deeply and pleasantly. When the day began, Siddhartha asked his host, the ferryman, to get him across the river. The ferryman got him across the river on his bamboo raft. The wide water shimmered reddishly in the light of the morning. "This is a beautiful river," he said to his companion. "Yes," said the ferryman, "a very beautiful river. I love it more than anything. Often I have listened to it, often I have looked into its eyes, and always I have learned from it. Much can be learned from a river." "I thank you, my benefactor," spoke Siddhartha, disembarking on the other side of the river. I have no gift I could give you for your hospitality, my dear, and also no payment for your work. I am a man without a home, a son of a Brahman and a Samaman. I did see it, spoke the ferryman, and I haven't expected any payment from you, and no gift which would be the custom for guests to bear. You will give me the gift another time. Do you think so? Asks Siddhartha amusedly. Surely, this too, I have learned from the river. Everything is coming back. You too, Samana, will come back. Now, farewell. Let your friendship be my reward. Commemorate me when you make offerings to the gods. Smiling, they parted. You have been listening to Nirvana, meditation, knowledge, wisdom, knowledge, wisdom. You have been listening to me, Morale Bernard. Please join me in the next video. Join me in the next video, and please subscribe, please share. Look forward to seeing you in the next video. Okay.